BrogiNaric, back again with another review. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about The Woman King, the new Viola Davis-led historical drama action adventure flick that just recently came out in theaters, which has a lot of controversy surrounding it. We're going to get into, but this is going to be a spoiler review, but I'm going to get into spoilers later on in the video. If you just want the spoilers about the actual movie, you can skip to those in the timestamp. It will be down in the description. This movie I remember when it was first announced and, it looked cool, but it's Hollywood, so any movie about African history and stuff revolving around the slave trade is always going to be a little iffy for me personally. But I watched the trailer and I was like, yo, this trailer is dope as shit. And the cast is really good. And it's like, okay, let's see where this goes. The main story of The Woman King focuses on a dramatized and fictionalized retelling of the Agoji all-female warrior group that were a part of the Dahomey Nation set in Africa. The movie is set in 1823, loosely complicit in the African transatlantic slave trade. And it focuses on this lead character, leader of the Agoji, Naniska, played by Viola Davis. And she's trying to convince the king to get out of this because this is bad on all sides and they should try to, in a way, abolish their involvement in the slave trade in general. They're beefing with this other nation, the Oye Empire. That's one focus. And then there's another focus where it focuses on this young girl who is brought into the Agoji. And then there's also some love story, sort of love story stuff that kind of comes in. And it's a big, rousing, like classic Hollywood movie about somewhat underdogs overcoming an oppressive force that's against them, which is a great story, amazing story. I think the story in this is really good. The story that this movie presents is really good. The problem comes in when you know this is a dramatization, a Hollywood dramatization on real events, and you look into those actual real events. It's crazy how much this movie tries to frame our main characters, the heroes. In reality, them and the people that are the enemies in this movie are all pieces of shit who are all complicit in the transatlantic slave trade, whether they were fighting amongst themselves, amongst their own people, and selling them off into the slave trade. I knew a little bit of that going into the film, which kind of bothered me watching the film. But then finding out more information, there's a great article that breaks down a lot of this and does a fair job of breaking down the real history and what the movie changes. And I'll have a link to that in the description as well. It further hurt my enjoyment of the film. This is such a sensitive topic for a lot of people. But in this day and age, it's a bit odd for this film to have such a Pan-Africanism, pro-Black, like uplifting vibe to it when the actual history is much more tragic and darker than what the movie is displaying. So I would say if you go into this film, at least don't go into this movie blind, not knowing what this movie is truly depicting. Should be able to separate a Hollywood film from the real history, but at least go into this movie knowing the real history so you can at least notice when the movie is really trying to trick you. Because this movie does do a lot of trickery. A lot of trickery to make things look different than what it is, which is very crazy how they went with this. So this movie was directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, very good director. She did Love and Basketball. She recently did The Old Guard, which is on Netflix, which is both very good films. Her cinematography is great in this. Her action, she does very well shooting action. I don't know if there's a stigma with women who can't film action, but she's one of the better female directors, women directors that can actually do competent action. And it looks great in this. All the action sequences are really solid. There's a few nitpicks, me personally, where they like zoom in a little too close on some of the action. But for the most part, the battle scenes, the training montages, all of that stuff is great. The score is great. The costuming is great. And the settings, all great stuff. And the biggest thing is the acting. The acting is phenomenal in this film. Like just as a movie, the acting is phenomenal. Viola Davis as Naniska is awesome. She's like I said, she's like the veteran. She's the leader of the Agoji. The whole way the movie mythologically makes the Agoji like these almost sort of like superheroes. I mean, they're clearly the inspiration for the Dora Milaje within the Black Panthers. They're like the real Amazons as opposed to the mythical Amazons. And the movie does kind of give this sort of hero vibe to them. And they do come off very badass. And they are badass. Like all the women in this are badass. The other main sort of secondary lead in this film is the character of Nawi, played by Thuso Mbedu, who I was not familiar with She is great in this film. She plays this young girl who is rambunctious and rebellious for her time. She doesn't want to get married away to old, weird, rich guys. So her father gives her away to the Goji and like, hey, y'all do something with this girl because we can't do nothing with her. Then the movie shifts to focusing on her and the other younger women who have been brought into the Goji, and they have to go through the training process. And that stuff is great. Her getting to know the other women in the tribe, learning more about her backstory and how that ties into other stuff, which I didn't see coming. There's various twists and turns throughout the movie, and her story is really good and how it ties into other stuff. Lashana Lynch as Izogi is probably my favorite character in this movie. She is awesome. The more I see Lashana Lynch and her acting, the more I really fall for her. She is great. She's got a great energy. She's got a great vibe. But she's not second in command. She's like third in command. But she takes a liking to the Nawi character and kind of becomes her mentor, and is trying to get her to, get her head out of her ass and be serious and all of that. She does great, and she has some great moments, whether it's the fighting or she's the most comedic of the women, I would say. She's got really good dramatic scenes as well. So she's dope as shit in this. John Boyega as King Gezo, he does a very good job as the king of this nation. He's like a young king who just got in office, and he's trying to make better decisions, and Viola Davis's character is like his right-hand woman who's trying to help him strategize and be better, but also trying to convince him to get the country out of the slave trade, which once again is this movie's narrative. In actuality, he was all for the slave trade. Him, his father, his brother before him, all them motherfuckers, his kids after him, they was all cool with the slave trade. That was not a problem for them. So once again, that's the narrative of this movie.
This is a sick Negro.
Trying to paint a nice picture of actual history. But John Boyega does very good in his role. I know the crowd that I saw, but they were really into certain moments when they happen. Dramatic scenes all hit, the action scenes all hit. It's, like I said, it's a well-crafted film, but it's the way that this film goes out of its way to twist and turn the history to make one side look eviler than what they were, and to make the heroes look nicer than what they actually were. And like I said, once again, in actuality, there was false on all sides. All these people ain't shit. And the ending, and that's what really hurts me with the ending, which really frustrated me because I was enjoying it, but I was also getting very emotional watching this film because it was so good. It was such a good it's such a good film. But then there's that other side of it where it's like, y'all are just straight up like twisting and lying your asses off. And I know you are. And it's like, why did y'all do this? That's the weird thing. It's like, this movie probably wouldn't have as much backlash against it if this was a completely fictional story based on a completely fictional tribe. Like, if this was like the origin story of Wakanda, or if this was the origin story of Zamunda from Coming to America, I think it would be a lot more palpable for people to accept it. But the fact that you're taking one group, one traditional nation that was heavily complicit in the slave trade to make them seem to be the heroes against the slave trade is almost like making a movie where you have the Klan being portrayed as heroes as opposed to them being the fucking criminals and murderers that they were. It's odd. This is an odd decision to do that. It's very weird. But it's weird that they did this. If I were to give The Woman King a grade, I would give it a B or a 7 out of 10. The only reason that's the highest I can give it, because anything higher than that, I would be lying to myself, where I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. And I gotta penalize it for what they did with the story, with them trying to twist the true history behind that. So that's the highest I can give it, because like I said, everything else is very solid. And so that was essentially my non-spoilery thoughts for the film. I would say I'm not going to say don't watch this film if you want to boycott it. I know some people boycott it. I'm not going to say you're wrong for that. You have legitimate gripes unless you're being a little out there with your hatred towards it. I will say the feminist angle, I don't think is as strong as what the marketing is making it seem like. The marketing definitely is going on that rah-rah, black girl, black women getting things done vibe, which is in the movie, but the movie itself does not go out of its way to make any of the men, or at least any of the men that are supposed to be the good guys, it doesn't go out of its way to make them seem incompetent or emasculate them, which was surprising because the marketing did seem like it probably would have went down that route, but it doesn't. John Boyega's character as the king, he is not disrespected or made like an idiot. There's the other guy that is the head of the men's army. There's a whole men's army that's in this movie that's not shown really in the marketing. But that guy, he's a minor character, but he's not made to look like an idiot. And then the Malik character, he's another black guy in the movie that's not made to look like an idiot. So that angle is not as strong if you've actually seen the movie, but based on the marketing, yes, it does give off that vibe. And I was surprised at how well they did that. And hopefully, I know that's something to worry with some people having with Black Panther and Wakanda Forever. Hopefully that movie will also skirt that as well. And if you want to hear spoilers about the actual movie, what happens in the movie, I'll get into that right after this. We'll get into spoilers now. And I have to say, one of the things that frustrated me the most was the ending. I'm just going to jump to the ending. I'll get into the story, but like the ending literally, there's a positive sort of happy vibe to the end of this film, which makes no sense. Because this movie is still set in the slave trade. The slave trade is still happening. Them destroying the port, in reality, there would be retaliation. So it's like, I don't know why you're so happy. White folks is coming back to retaliate on you. Like, it's going to happen in this fictional story. Very frustrating that this movie is like, it kind of ends on this upbeat note where it's like, and from that day forward, the homie nation never participated in the transatlantic slave trade ever again. It was done. It was abolished after that because of these women here. In actuality, that was not the case. The homie tribe, most of the West African tribes were so bad being complicit in the slave trade that the British, by this point in 1823, had abolished their slavery. The British had to come in and put pressure on these other European countries and these other African countries that were still doing it to get them to stop. Now, you are fucking up when the original colonizers is coming in to tell y'all to chill out on the colonizer. You was on some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is some crazy stuff right there. The British was up in there like,
what's wrong with you? What's wrong with y'all? You niggas are crazy.
So the movie kind of depicts the Ogoje as this elite force, which they were. That's true. They were like sort of like an elite force of all women warriors who whooped some ass. And I thought it was interesting how the movie, within the homie nation, like they were viewed as like gods. And they, the king didn't want them to be looked at, and they were all like segregated from the people. They were in the palace. They had their own section in the palace, and they couldn't be seen or touched by outside men. All of that was very, very interesting and mysterious, and based on true events. But they were also very brutal. The movie does open with them saving some. They were fighting with I think the Mahi tribe or the Mahi nation. And they freed these women who were taken from their own tribes that were going to be sold into slavery. And the Ogoje saved them. They saved the women and they saved the men. But in the movie, you only see the women that they save. They take them back and they're like, hey, if you want to stay, you can stay. If you don't, you can leave. But you don't see the men that they saved because those men were sold as slaves. So Viola Davis's character, Niska, is the leader of the Ogoje, and she's a veteran. She's somewhat tired of fighting, but she's definitely tired of being complicit within the slave trade. She keeps trying to convince the king, Gezo, played by John Boyega, like, hey, we should get out of this. Like, why are we doing this to our own people? We've got gold, we've got palm oil, which is a natural resource that we have a lot of. We can just be selling this. We don't have to be doing this. And the king is like, we got to do it because A, we make money, and B, we're being oppressed by the Oye Empire, which is the big empire that Mahi were working with that was trying to attack them, which is based in real history. They did have beef with the Oye Empire, but once again, both nations were complicit in slave trade. She was promised the role of the woman king by the previous king, who is King Gezo's brother, played by John Boyega. His brother promised her the title of woman king, but that didn't happen. He betrayed her. Gezo talks about like, he doesn't like the slave trade because his mom was fed into the slave trade, but he's still complicit with it. In the actual history, the reason his mom was a slave was because his mom was a part of a coup attempt to take out his brother. And once the brother, stopped that, he sold his mom. So, like, the real history is very interesting, but the movie doesn't really get into that because the movie is trying to portray it like, oh wait, no, it was the Oye that sold his mother. Like, it loosely implies that it was the Oye, but it's like, no, it was the homie within itself was the ones that sold his mom because she was trying to kill the previous king. But now he's king. I don't know if that's a real thing. None of the articles breaking down the history of this film has ever mentioned anything about the Woman King. So I think that's something that was made up for this film. But it's essentially like you have the king, you have the queen, but the Woman King is like right in the middle between those two. And she's like a woman who is supposed to have the same respect and demand as the king, and essentially an advisor, which she kind of already has that role. She's his advisor, but it's not like official. But that's how King Gazo uses her, as his advisor. And then there's like some beef with one of his wives. That's going on, and then we run into the Nawi character, who is played by Thusu Mbeda. She's this young girl. She's 19. And I gotta say, the crazy thing about this woman, she plays 19 in this movie. She looks like she's 15. And when you look up her age, the woman is 31 years old. That shit is crazy. I was like, when I looked up her age, I was like, she's 31? She looked younger than what they said she was in the movie. Like, that is the power of Melon. That shit is crazy. First time seeing her, she does a great job. And she's this young, rebellious woman who was raised by her parents. And we see the scene where they're trying to set her off to this rich old guy. And he's abusive, and she's like, I'm not letting this guy beat up on me or be with me. That's based in reality right there. Women were treated like shit, especially back in the 1800s. So that, if you get offended by like, oh, women are being so feminist and this, like, no, that's some real shit. That's real. She gets banished by her dad, and he gives her to the king, like, hey, y'all do something with this girl, because she's not gonna survive out here. Let her be one of the Goji. So she's brought in with the other women that were saved from the earlier tribe. And this is when the movie kind of turns into like sort of a military movie or a sports film where, you got the young underdogs who are now trying to move into this elite force, like they're becoming part of the Marines or something. Then there's the Nawi character, who's like very headstrong, very stubborn, very smart, but she's not taking things seriously. And then a good portion of the movie is her getting to know the other people on the team, them trying to mentor her to get her life together and stop joking and be serious, because once you're in that battlefield, shit is real. We're introduced to these two characters, Santo and Malik. Santo played by Hero Finis Tiffin, and Malik played by Jordan Bolger. They're from Brazil. Santo is the son of a slave trader, and he's brought his friend Malik, who is the son of a Dahomey woman who was a slave. He's brought him here so he can get back and sort of see the tribe, but also they're there to buy some slaves, because that's what he does. He's a slave trader. There's a moment where the Oye come in, even though they're beefing with the Dahomey, the Dahomey is kind of under their rule. They have to give them tribute. So the guys come in to get the tribute. Tribute is small, and he's like, hey, we want what you gave us, but we also want 40 Goye women to come with us. And the king defers, and he's like, we'll give you 20 instead of 40. So the guy accepts, and they leave, and the guys are left. They pick out the 40. And as soon as they said that, I was like, this is going to be a trap, isn't it? And I knew it was confirmed once they picked out the Nawe girl. So they go to the port, and it's run by General Abba Ade, played by Jimmy Odukoya. I think I said that right. I believe he was a Nigerian actor. He's like the main bad guy. He's the one that demanded the 40 women that's getting 20. So the women pull up, and this was a dope scene. So they got a basket, and they're like, yeah, we're not doing this bullshit. We're breaking free from you guys. We're not giving you any more trade. And she throws open the basket, and it's filled with the heads of the guys that stayed behind to pick up the tribute. So all the girls run away except for one. Viola Davis stays to fight them, and the main girl, Nawi, helps her out by cutting the rope that shuts the gate closed, because all the other soldiers are about to come out to fight, and now they're stuck behind the gate. So she's fighting the guy, trying to hold her own. Then they escape, they run, and they jump off the cliff into the water, and the rest of the women are there waiting on the boats. It was a dope scene. It's a really dope scene. And before that, we discover that Naniska, Viola Davis's character, is having these nightmares. Something's just not right with her. And her friend Aminza, played by Sheila Atim, who's very spiritual, she does this thing where she deciphers her dreams, and she tells her something from your past is coming back, and there's something in your past that is holding you back. That little crumb is dropped there. After that happens, we get the moment where the slave trader and Malik go to the village, and they show up on the day where the young students of the Goji have to go through their final tournament thing to be accepted as one of the Goji. It's essentially like an obstacle course, sort of very American Gladiator-esque type stuff. They go through that process, and Nawi wins, and she wins after she shows compassion. She goes back. They had to crawl through these thick thorn bushes, and she goes back to pull one of her friends out. and she still manages to win. So she is like the top of her class or whatever, and everyone's happy. She saw the Malik guy earlier when he was out, when they were traveling to the village. He was out by the water and she stole his clothes and they have a little interaction. And you think they're gonna be like this is gonna be like a romantic story. Like there's that hint that it could be that way because he's trying to get to know the Dahomey tribe, but that's what his mother was from, and he promised his mother that he would one day go see where she came from. And then she's also very young, like I said, she's 19, and she's still debating on, like, does she want to go down this pathway of being this warrior, or does she want to try to have, potentially fall in love or have a family? Because, like, once you're into the homie, you're supposed to be virgins. You're not supposed to be touched by any man and all that type of stuff. So she's still at that age where she's not quite sure if she's all in on that. And then that also plays in with Lashana Lynch's character, who's very much like, yeah, I want to be the next Viola Davis. Like when she ages out, I'm gonna take her role. I'm gonna be leading the group and everything. And Denawi character is kind of like, yeah, but you don't know what love is. Like you never really got to experience that. And so she's also kind of somewhat iffy on, is she making the right decisions? But she's still very solid in her decision to be, a warrior. After the girl wins the tournament, she's got all these thorns in her, and Viola Davis is very proud of her. And she's like, yeah, going down this line of work, you're gonna get a lot more battle scars. And they're looking at the girl's body, and she noticed she has this weird scarred birthmark on the back of her, I believe it was her left shoulder. And through some sort of way, she reveals that she's an orphan. Like the people that gave her away weren't her real parents. She was an orphan, and they raised her. So she hears that this girl Nawi is an orphan. She sees the scar on her shoulder. She starts freaking out, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? I kind of know what it might be, but like I'm waiting for the movie to explain it. A little later on, we find out that Naniska, when she was younger, she was captured by some of the Oye, and she was held captive, and she eventually escaped. And she came back to her team, which we knew that before, but we find out that when she was held captive, she was raped. And when she went back, she discovered that she was pregnant, unbeknownst to the other people in the tribe. But her friend Amenza helped her deliver the baby, and her friend kind of freaked out, ran away for a little bit. She kind of ran away for a little bit. And in that time, Viola Davis took a knife, she carved a cut on the baby's back, and she stuck a shark tooth in the wound. Once the girl Nawi hangs out with the Malik character by the waterfall again, and once again, they don't kiss because you're thinking they're gonna go down this romantic path, but they tend to avoid that. But he tells her that, hey, because of that stunt you guys pulled off, the Oye guys are coming to get in that ass, so I'm just giving you a warning. So she takes that information and gives it to Viola Davis, and then that's when Viola Davis reveals to her, like, hey, you're my daughter, and there's a fucking shark tooth in your scar. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she cuts it out of her. They're in the water, and she cuts her on the back, and then you see the shark tooth. And, now that they realize that they're blood related, I like that she wasn't immediately like, oh, Mom, I'm so happy to see you. Like, she was very distant. She was sort of distant, like, oh, shit, like you're my mom? Like, damn, if you would have kept me, like, I probably wouldn't have had this rough ass life or whatever. And, and also I kind of know you. And like, I don't know if I'm happy about you being my mom type thing. And I like that they let that play out. They didn't immediately fall in love for each other. After that's revealed, they come up with a battle plan because now the Oye are coming towards them. They do have guns and they interact with gunpowder. They don't have a lot of guns because the Oye, that's one of the things, they have horses and guns, but the homie don't have much guns. And apparently they didn't know that gunpowder was explosive outside of just putting them in your guns. That doesn't sound realistic, but for the sake of the movie, that's like the big reveal. So Viola Davis comes up with the idea of making fake termite mounds on this open field because they somehow know that the Oye are most likely going to camp out in this area. So they get a bunch of pots or vases filled with gunpowder. They use the palm olive oil in the mud to sculpt these big termite mounds spread throughout the field. And I thought they would use the guns at a distance to snipe them once the guys, they make camp there. But somehow, this is like hours later, they left oil trails in the field and they light the fire, and the fire, goes through the trails and explode the different hidden explosives throughout the field, which was a bit much in my opinion. I thought they were just gonna shoot them from a distance, but it's a movie, so you gotta have a little flair, I guess. And they get into this big battle. It was really good. real, like I said, well shot action. The action is great. You see the dudes getting fucked up, some of the women getting fucked up, like everybody's getting fucked up. There's some great fighting in this. Both the armies, the male army and the Dogoshi, are working together against the Oyo Empire. So they fend them off, but they have some casualties and they also have some POWs. Certain women are taken away. And one of those women is Naui, because she got thrown down a hill and she hit her head. So she's missing. And one of the girls is, who is the girl that she helped out of Thornbush, who, like I said, wasn't really cut out for this type of life, but she, is hanging in. She's not tied to anyone, so Naui tells her to roll off the back of the wagon and get back to the village to get help, which she does. Naui and the other women are taken back to the slave port. We see that Lashana Lynch's character, Zogi, is already captured. I mean, she was captured too. We just didn't know this. And she is pissed. She is pissed. She is defeated. She is not happy. And one of the reasons she's pissed and defeated is because she's got a broken arm. And she doesn't want them to know she has a broken arm. And she's also like, fuck, I'm probably not going to survive this. But now gives her some hope and reinvigorates her, helps push the bone back in to kind of reset her arm. And they're like, all right, we need to come up with a plan because hopefully, it's very likely they're going to come back to save us because they're not going to let us, there's too many of us to get sold out like this. And also we're a Goji. They're going to come back to, save the squad, right? The king is happy. He's like, yo, we stood our ground against them. Let's have a celebration. This is going to be hot. This is going to be fire. And Niska's also like, yeah, we held them off, but some of our people are missing. Not expressly saying, hey, my daughter's missing. I want to save my daughter, but it's like, some of our people is missing. We should go do something. And the king's like, yeah, we probably shouldn't do that. That's not good. Like, that's going to be, acceptable losses. We're going to have to, some people got fucked up in the war. It is what it is. And Niska is debating on whether or not she's going to disobey the king and go out there on her own because she doesn't want anyone else to get involved because she's like, I'll take the rap, but I don't want anyone else to get involved. She leaves on her own at night to go to the port to go save them. And as she's leaving, the main guy, the Migan, who is the leader of the men, he sees her leaving, and I'm like, oh, is he going to snitch on her or whatever? But as she's leaving, we see that a couple of the other Agoji, it's probably about like 10 or 12 of them come out with her, and the leader of the men is with. He's the only guy with them, and he comes with them as well. So they go to the port. Earlier on, they're about to be sold, and they've come up with a plan. They're like, okay, there's gonna be a moment where they're about to sell us. They're gonna uncuff us to hand us over. That's the moment when we strike. So they're on the auction block, and the guy, the Brazilian dude, is there testing them out, and he wants to buy Lashana Lynch. A distraction happens, and they're in that chain. They break loose. They're fighting off the guys. One of the girls gets captured. Naui, I think it was either Naui or Lashana Lynch, ends up shooting one white dude, and they're dodging bullets. Then the Malik character comes in, and he helps out Naui because, like I said, he's got a crush on her, so he's helping her out. And Lashana Lynch is free. And she looks back and she sees that Naui is being held down. She stops and she goes back to help her, but then she gets shot like twice. And then Naui breaks free from the people holding her and holds her. And, she's, the person that she was really close with is now dead. The Brazilian dude is like, yo, white guy just got killed and no one's going to want to buy her. So do you want to buy her? Because no one else is going to buy this girl. So he buys her and she's in the room upstairs. And she's like, oh, am I your property now? He's like, no, I'm not trying to do that. I bought you to save your life because there's a white guy that got died and them people is pissed. And you need to get the fuck out of here as soon as you can. And he's like, I got a setup where we can go to England to get the hell up out of here for a little while because the streets is hot for your ass right now. You lucky to be here right now. It's midnight now. Viola Davis and her squad been pulled up and they sneak in, they take out some of the guys, they free some of the people, get some guns, and then it's an all-out shootout, brawl, fight, and everyone's getting fucked up, everyone's getting shot. It's crazy. I forgot to mention, it's implied, and essentially, it's very heavily implied that the Abba character, the leader of the Oye, the general that's the leader of the Oye, he's the guy that raped Viola Davis and is Naui's dad, essentially. She has a battle with him, and it's a really good fight between the two of them, because the first fight was good, but this one was even better. She's trying to hold her own, but dude is giving it to her. He had this weird sort of, I don't know if it was like a shell or something in his ear, but she cuts that out of his ear, and then the daughter comes in and helps him out. They kill him. They essentially kill everyone that's against them there. There's a moment where Malik, his friend, is trying to escape. He grabs some of the slaves. They had slaves tied up in chains on poles on the beach, and he takes one of these groups of black men, throws him in the boat, throws Malik in the boat. He's like, we getting the fuck up out of here. We leaving with something, and we getting the fuck up out of here. They're starting to push into the water, and Malik takes the key from his friend, and he unchains the guys on the boat. Then his friend is like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Then the guys in the boat grab the white dude, and they just drag his ass and drown him in the fucking water. And Malik is just sitting there like,
boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
And he's like trying to get away, and if I'm not mistaken, he sees the Goji leaving, and he sees Nawi, and Nawi looks at him, and he looks at her, and he like waves at her, and she kind of waves at him, and they go their separate ways. Because I thought I wasn't sure, where they're gonna go, like, oh, we're gonna fall in love and run away together. Like, they didn't do any of that. She sticks with her tribe, and he helps out some people to kind of make up for, his life essentially being a houseboy his whole life. Port is destroyed. We go back, they show back up in the village, and the king's a little pissed, but he's also like, but you did save some people, so I'm gonna let it slide. He gives Viola Davis the title of the Woman King, and his wife is all upset and whatever, and she gets the title of the Woman King. Everyone's happy, it's a joyous occasion. They survive, and the homie, they have stopped oppression, they've ended slavery in Africa, and they're gonna keep on living and fighting, and everything's such a upbeat and happy story, and the crowd applauds, and it's great. And then, like I said, there's also like a Pan-African message where it's like, we are all Africans, we should not let the Europeans oppress us, we should all work together regardless if we're from the same tribe or not. If we're Africans, we should work together. That sounds nice. But living in 2022, and this being set in 1823, we know that it has not really worked out. It really hasn't. It's a nice sentiment, but it has not worked out, sadly. I don't know, to me at least, that fell on deaf ears. It was very weird that the movie ended on such a upbeat, positive note, because I'm like, well, slavery is still happening. If this was real, there would be retaliation, so your village is going to get destroyed, because the Portuguese and the Brazilians would definitely be coming back to holler at you, as well as the Oye Empire. They will definitely be hollering back at you. And in reality, they did not stop trading slaves, because it continued for at least another 20 fucking years after this story is set, and that they continued within the slave trade. So I don't know why they felt the need to end on this positive note. And from that day forward, the homies stopped being a part of the slave trade.
Wrong.
So, The Woman King is very frustrating. It's a very frustrating film, but it's also a very good film outside of the actual real history. So if you want to enjoy it on that aspect, I get it. If you want to boycott it on the fact that, Hollywood is lying, I get it as well. And you shouldn't be upset at people who are boycotting against it, because there are legitimate gripes against it. Now, some people might go a little overboard with some of their hatred, but there is legitimate gripes against this film. So make up your own decision if you want to see it or not. But I went to see it because, like I said, I thought the trailer was dope. And it's also very frustrating because the acting and the storytelling is very, very good in this film. Everyone is giving 110%. And like I said, black actors don't usually get black directors don't get these size budgets to do half of what this movie does. And I'm just frustrated that even all of this positivity is being overshadowed by all the real world negativity that this movie is trying to whitewash or blackwash or whatever the fucking word. It's trying to cover up, and it's very frustrating. And yeah, it's very annoying. But at the end, I can't say I wasn't entertained by what the fictionalized story is being told here. And this movie would have been way better if it was based on complete fiction. If this was, like I said, if this was the origin of Wakanda, if this was the origin of Zamunda, would have been way more palatable, I believe, than what they are slickly trying to do. It's very frustrating. But those are my thoughts on The Woman King. Y'all let me know what you thought about the film in the comments. Let me know if you have seen it or you haven't seen it. And maybe give me some of your reasons why you did enjoy it or didn't want to go see the film. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.